Hi there, I'm Nez, and I am a fragrance expert. For over a decade, I was a traveling sales girl and I worked for almost every designer fragrance brand that you can think of, and I've served thousands of customers and I've sold thousands of fragrances. I went on to become a trainer for a group of designer fragrance brands, so I would train the staff at department stores and in luxury boutiques, and I would show them how to talk about the fragrances. I would tell them how the fragrances are made, the special backstories, and how to sell these things to customers. So I've been on both the side of someone who's a fragrance fanatic and who loves fragrances, and I've also been on the marketing and selling side of the fragrances. So I think I've got a bit of an interesting vantage point that I can add to this sphere of fragrance heads. So the fragrance I'm going to talk to you about today is Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. It's a very cheeky name for a very cheeky fragrance. It's Lost Cherries. It just evokes this image, doesn't it? It evokes this like very sexy, intense, a little bit nasty little image. I'm going to give you a review, my professional opinion on it, and I'm also going to share with you a little dupe that I haven't seen anybody else talking about. So now the reason why this fragrance is so special and so talked about is because it is incredibly unique. There are not too many fragrances out there that use cherry to this extent. Now the top notes are sour cherry, bitter almond, and liqueur. For the most part, what you're going to experience when you spray this fragrance is the sour cherry and the bitter almond. The liqueur is there, but it's subtle and it's muted. The real punch in this fragrance is that sour cherry, which is immeasurable, unsurpassable, incredibly unique, and there are so very few fragrances that really use cherry as a note, which is such a shame because it is such a delicious fruity note and it's such a sexy and mysterious fruity note. However, I do think it's a scent that's hard to capture and hard to hold onto, which is why it's not used so often. And that's also what made this fragrance such a hit, because it was something entirely new, or at least seemingly entirely new. I'm actually going to introduce a dupe today that has a very similar quality to this fragrance for a fraction of the price. Now in the heart of this fragrance, we have some sambac jasmine, some Turkish rose, and plum. Those elements are there. Yeah, they're there, but they're not really... They're nothing to write home about. Really, this fragrance is all about the cherries. If you love cherries, you're going to love it. If you don't like cherries, don't even bother with it. In the base notes of this fragrance, we have tonka, vanilla, we have some benzoin, some balsam, some cinnamon, sandalwood. There's quite a few things at play here. However, none of them are particularly noticeable. For me, personally, I had to have this fragrance, and I had to have this fragrance for a personal reason. Growing up, I always really enjoyed sour cherries. I love the taste of sour cherries. I love sour cherry jam. So when I saw a fragrance that has sour cherry as the note, I was like, I have to have this. There is something very special, unique, and I think in that sense it's captured a real niche in the gourmand and fruity market, because this is very much a gourmand fragrance. When you smell it, you want to bite it. You think of a cherry pie, you think of sweet almonds, you think of a dessert. It is an incredibly gourmand fragrance. And while there are floral notes like Turkish rose and jasmine, you don't really experience them very much here. So there's some really great things about this fragrance, and the first of which is the uniqueness. You're not going to be able to get anything else that has this level of cherry or concentrated cherry, and not cherry in a sickly sweet and candy kind of celebrity smell or body mist or cheap scent, but a really sophisticated, elevated cherry scent. This does smell incredibly expensive and luxurious, very elevated gourmand fragrance. Now, some of the downsides, and there are some downsides, and there are some big downsides with this one, unfortunately. And if you have heard about this fragrance before, if you've looked at the reviews of this fragrance before, you probably know where I'm going to go with this. And that's the sillage and the projection. It's just not there. That's probably where they get the lost from, because the cherry does get lost eventually. So at first the cherry is very present and you're like, damn, that's a lot of cherry. And then eventually that cherry gets lost. And where it gets lost is on your skin. It disappears, it goes. It's just nowhere to be found after a short amount of time, unfortunately. So the thing about Lost Cherry is, if you purchase it, you have to come to terms with the fact that this is a fragrance that you are going to smell on yourself, and you will be able to smell it on yourself, but nobody else is going to be able to smell this on you. Not at all. The only way that anybody else is going to be able to smell this fragrance on you is if they hold you tightly, or they give you a real big hug, if they have carnal knowledge of you. That's how they're going to be able to smell this fragrance, but they are not going to be able to smell it for any other reason, because it just does not project. It's incredibly close to the skin, and when I say close to the skin, I mean it's right here and nowhere further. It's about a centimeter off the skin, and that's about it. So when you initially spray this fragrance, there's a big juicy burst. There's a lot of gourmand, and it smells strong, and it fills the room, but that disappears incredibly quickly. It dissipates, it's gone, say goodbye, the cherry is lost. That's why he called it Lost Cherry, I'm telling you, because the cherry gets lost. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's a bad fragrance. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a poor performing fragrance. It's just going in with the understanding that that's how it's going to be. This is not a fragrance where you're going to fill the room. This is not a fragrance that goes beast mode, not even close. This is a fragrance that you will enjoy, and you alone. You alone. I cannot stress enough how much it's you alone. This is the decision you have to make. If you are okay with spending, in Australia it's over $350 for a fragrance that nobody else is going to be able to smell. The only way that anybody else is going to be able to smell this is if you carry it in your bag and you are topping up constantly, hour on the hour, and you are just smashing through this $350 fragrance at a rapid rate. That is the only way that other people are going to be able to smell it. So if you have lots of money, honey, and you don't mind doing that, then go for it. But if you are looking for a sweet gourmand fragrance or a sweet cherry type, berry type fragrance that, you know, you can spray on, it lasts all day, this is unfortunately not the fragrance for you. If you're a fragrance collector and you really want to have this unique note, this unique sour cherry note and almondy note in there, then this is a good fragrance for you. Now, I'm going to give you the dupe. So there is a dupe for this. I haven't heard many people talking about it because it's a fragrance that's lesser known and it was a flanker. But I do think if you can get your hands on it, if you enjoy a fragrance like Tom Ford Lost Cherry, then this is a fragrance that you will probably enjoy as well. It'll save you some money. You can definitely get this one on sale. And to be honest with you, it's got a lot better projection and sillage as well. And the fragrance that I want to talk about that you can use as a dupe for Tom Ford Lost Cherry is Prada Candy Gloss. Prada Candy Gloss. Now, Prada Candy Gloss is a flanker from the original Prada Candy fragrance, is a flanker of it, right? And you can even see when you compare them side by side, look, they're both inspired in the same way. So there's very few fragrances that actually do this liqueur on the inside sort of thing. I think the first fragrance that ever did that was Narciso Rodriguez. And then Prada Candy, from what I understand, was the second fragrance to use this technique. And now it's become quite popular. I've seen it in Kilian fragrances and I've seen it in Tom Ford as well. So this fragrance is also a cherry fragrance. This is also that sweet, strong cherry fragrance. Now, how is it different to the Tom Ford Lost Cherry? Now, I've got them both sprayed on here. The Tom Ford Lost Cherry has got a tartness to it and a sourness to it, which is delicious, that sour cherry element, versus the Prada Candy Gloss, which is more of a kind of a candy type cherry to it, so it's not so sour. And also this one has the benzoin. This one has benzoin and a lot of smoother caramel-like qualities to it as well. So there's a sweeter and softer cherry, less of the tanginess, less of the tartness. There is still an almondy consistency to this fragrance as well. However, it is again pared back a little bit. You get a bit more of the benzoin in this, which is the original DNA of the Prada Candy original. So it's that benzoin, that smoky warmth. Now, overall, just smelling the two of them, what you notice with the Tom Ford is that there is an opulence to the Tom Ford Lost Cherry. It smells expensive, it really does. Unfortunately, with the Tom Ford Lost Cherry, this fades rather quickly, and you are sort of left with just a very soft skin scent after a while. Versus the Prada Candy Gloss, which does linger and it does last on the skin and it gives a very similar effect. Now, the inspiration behind this particular fragrance was to recreate the scent of the inside of a makeup bag, which I think is a really interesting little concept. Now, a lot of lipsticks used to smell like cherry, so especially in like the 90s and things like that, you got a really fake synthetic cherry scent with lipsticks and lip smackers, like little lip balms and things like that, and that would be the scent that would often be left at the bottom of a woman's makeup bag, is that kind of synthetic cherry scent. And that's what Candy Gloss exactly tries to convey. It's that powdery, almondy, sweet, little bit synthetic, candy, cherry scent that you would get from makeup products. I don't think this fragrance got as much hype as it should have. I think it's the best flanker of Prada Candy that was done. Get your hands on Prada Candy Gloss. I think it's going to satisfy a lot of the cravings of Tom Ford Lost Cherry, but a fraction of the price and with a much higher sillage, if I'm being honest. So this fragrance, when I do wear it here and there, people do notice it and they do comment on it, and it is gourmand, it is delicious, it is powdery, it is very unique. And I think it just overall performs a lot better. So if you are a big fan of your Tom Ford Lost Cherry, but you don't want to spend $350 something on a fragrance that's not going to last really at all, then definitely get yourself a bottle of the Prada Candy Gloss instead. Now I'm going to give you my final thoughts on the Lost Cherry and whether I think you should purchase it or not. And the answer to that is going to be very personal for everyone. Now I purchased it knowing that it had poor reviews. I purchased it knowing that it wouldn't last in the skin, and I purchased it specifically because I love cherries, and that was a fragrance that I wanted to have in my collection. That was a unique note that I wanted captured in my collection, and I was a little bit worried that it would be a limited edition fragrance, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to spend the money, and even if I'm the only person who enjoys it, at least I'm going to enjoy it. And that's been the case. Now, would I repurchase it? I'm not 100% sure, because a part of me thinks, yes, I want to continue having this beautiful fragrance in my collection. However, another part of me goes, well, I could spend that money on another beautiful fragrance that is actually going to last and do a better job. So I'm not 100% sure if I'll ever repurchase it or not, but for the moment I have it, I love it, and I do use it sparingly. When I want the effect of it without actually having to dip into it, I will go the Prada Candy Gloss route, which does a fantastic job at a fraction of the price and is a dupe that really no one's talked about. But anyway, I'm bringing it forward. Try it out, and if you do try it out and you do like it and you do think it's a good dupe, then let me know. So if you like this video, hit like, subscribe. Thank you very much, and have a great day.